Hey, Tim Alden here. We've got a really cool new pattern. We're going to do some spur straps here, and there's going to be a lot of different options with the spur strap pattern. If you're the kind of person that you can cut your own patterns out, but you'd like to get the pattern, it'll be for sale on our website. You can download the PDF, print that out, tape it to cardstock, whatever you got to do. That will also come with the floral design. If you also want to just get some spur strap blanks, we're going to click these out as well, and you can purchase those, which will come with the pattern. Or if you want one of our plexiglass templates and you want to hand cut these at your home, feel free to purchase that. It'll also come with the floral pattern as well. So whatever your needs are, there's a couple of different options. I'm going to show you how to carve this pattern today, and we'll have some fun. So a couple of things when I get started here. You'll see me put a tape on a lot of my projects. These we're not going to tape. I'm not too concerned about them stretching that much, and it's kind of a pain to take the tape off the back of stuff and not have it pull up some of the fibers. And so these aren't going to stretch that much, and we're not going to line them. So I want the back side to be pretty nice, and don't want the tape residue sticking on there. I'm going to just wet both sides just to get our moisture content evenly through this piece, and then we're going to go ahead and trace our pattern on here. So I'm not going to trace on the border. I'm just going to cut that, set it after I get this on, but I will kind of trace that front part where my border tool won't be able to get that. And then we're going to go ahead and start tracing our floral design on here. I did put packing tape over my pattern just so it doesn't absorb the moisture from the leather. Looks like I got it all. So I'm not going to line and stitch these, so I'm going to be able to get away with a little bit narrower of a border than I typically would if I was going to have to put a stitch row in here. And so that's one thing to consider. You may want to bump the border in a little bit if you were going to stitch these. This easy border is really cool for stuff where you want the same border and some stuff jumps over the border just a little bit, and then you get that same consistent border all the way around. Stick my thumb in front of it so I don't cut too far. That tight of a corner, probably just going to come back with a swivel knife and cut it square, or you can just roll it. It's a little difficult to roll around these corners when they're that tight with this border and get them to look nice. So now that we've got that cut, we can just take our swivel knife. You can just finish that off. And then cut your border here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and cut this design out. want everything to just taper off back here. Cut my line to the outside first. That way when I go back and cut my second one, I have a reference and I can see the first line. If I did the other one first, then I would be covering it when I cut the second one. Did I mention that I'm using 9-ounce leather in this video? I don't want them super heavy, but since I'm not lining them, I don't want them super lightweight. Okay, I think that's it. Go ahead and start beveling. So we're gonna go ahead and lift with our number 2 breaking lifter here. Same thing right here, just kind of get a little depth in those turnbacks there. And then I'll also use the number 1 on this scroll coming around here. Is just gonna help me roll around there with my beveler. I'm gonna start out with my number 1 checkered beveler. Do some small radiuses, get them out of the way. Using that lifter here first just makes life really easy rolling around there with your beveler. Now that we got our small stuff out of the way, jump up to my number 2 checkered beveler. You can see as I move forward, I'm hitting this harder. That's part of what leads the eye back, is these lines tapering off as they go back. So one thing you might notice, I started out down here. This is a little wetter right here, so I jumped ahead to where it was drier, and I'll come back and bevel all that stuff there. But I like to have some resistance with my leather. That way I get smoother lines. Something to think about. You can hear how hard I'm hammering on that maul. It's not overly wet. You can just feel a little bit of moisture content. Things tend to be sloppy and move around a little too much if it's over wet. And I'm using my 16-ounce maul. I like the 20-ounce more for stamping, and carving heavier leather, I might use a heavier maul. But for the most part, I like the 16-ounce maul. One thing that I see a lot in carving is not finishing your lines. You want everything to come right up to that stem. You want them to meet right across from each other. So that's something that a person can do, is just make sure you connect all the dots, because the eye will pick up where you haven't. Okay, bevel our border, flat part of the tool facing out. This long straight stretch here is where the number 3 beveler comes in real handy. Okay, now we've got all of our beveling done. And so we're going to use our 35 5-seed bar grounder from Barry King. Go as far back in that corner as I can. I'm just going to fade out to about the same angle as these stickers come off of the main flow line. Something like that, and then I'm going to come back, kind of tip it down so I make sure that I'm riding up next to that border, kind of make a match in the middle. Usually do this when it's a little bit drier. That way I don't pull little dots up. Also, if you're pulling dots up, you can break in your bar grounder just by hitting it on dry leather until it quits pulling the dots. Tip it back here and just get in there. Forward. Bar ground, just a little dot there. Just kind of slim down that, turn back a little bit more. Okay, so there we have our backgrounding's done. We're ready to start shading. We're gonna throw a little more water on here just to make our life a little easier. So, got our smooth #1 thumbprint. We use the big side for our bigger elements here. Just want to roll that around. And just fade off. Use the small side for smaller elements. Okay, so these little seed buds here, we're going to throw that thumbprint the opposite direction and tip it back. And that's just going to start our placement for our lifter. And then we'll come back and lift that. We got 2 of these here, so we're going to do them both at the same time. Just turn our thumbprint the opposite direction that we typically do, tip it back. And that'll give some depth when we come back and lift that and open it up. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to start shading our flower here. We're just going to outline this petal here. I'm using the thin side just because I feel like it gives me a little more definite line. I'll come back with the heavier one, kind of soften that on the inside. Go ahead and do the same thing for our little petals that are coming down here. Come in here, just gonna fan this out, knock this down use the smaller side to get down in here. Knock that down inside there. And I've fanned that out pretty much right out to the edge. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to come back with my vertical lined thumbprint. I'm going to create some radiating lines. So we're going to start out at an angle like this, and we're just going to roll around into here. Same thing on the other side, opposite angle. And same thing coming out from here. Create some nice depth there. Come back to our smooth thumbprint. I'm gonna outline this front petal as well. Soften as we get down towards the bottom. Soften that transition. And then here we're going to kind of come from right up under this edge and create a shaded line here that rolls from under that petal across there, push that petal down a little bit, tapers off. Same thing on this side, right there, tip the tool back pretty hard. Doesn't take a whole lot of shade in here. We're just barely hitting that just to create some color. Come back with our vertical line thumbprint. Pretty steep. Kind of radiate out from under there. While we have this vertical line thumbprint, we'll go ahead and line our leaf stem. A pretty steep angle on that. You can flatten it out so so those lines reach out a little bit further, but if you start out with a pretty steep one back here and then steep leaning forward, it just ends up looking a little bit better. If you're curious what angle this is, go out and pick a leaf and take a look at the angle that they're set out, and it'll be a good guide to you. So now that we've done that, I want to come back with a #1 scalloped and lined veiner, and we're just going to come across the outside line of our leaf here, and I just kind of tip it forward, and at the point, if you tip it back more, we'll flatten it out as we roll around, but we're just kind of high centering it. We're going to kind of match that same angle. It's best if you actually go over the edge, not just to the edge, but over the edge. Kind of gives it a real cool look. One of my favorite leaves here. You can see from this angle here, it just kind of splits the edge, the corner of that edge. Even on this where we don't have that edge, we're just going to run it up next to that border, because even though we don't have that edge there, those lines would be running in from there. We might want them to go a little bit further. So we're going to come back with our #2 lined veiner. I'm going to give some definition here in our petals of our flower. Going with the dominant petal. Okay, so we're going to come back with our #1 lifter, and we're going to open up these little seed buds here that we thumbprinted earlier. And then we're going to come back with a mule's foot and come down here. While we have this tool out, we'll take some of these big open spaces. We're just going to do a couple mule's feet, and we start in deep. We want to lighten up, just kind of taper off. So now that we've got those, we're going to take our stylus, and once again, on this style of flower, we're going to roll this edge and just kind of round it up. Okay. Do the same thing for our turn back here. Just give that the illusion that's rolling around there. So now that we've got the shading done here, we're going to go ahead and do some swivel knife work on this. For this, I like to put a little extra water on. The knife cuts a little bit better when it's wet. So, just gonna roll around there. One thing that I forgot to do is take this flower stem with our 45 bar grounder, and we're just going to put a little bit of shading on it with it. Just going to tip it off to the edge. Now, just work on this flower here. Flowers like this that have a lot of open space, really enjoy doing the swivel knife cuts on. I'm going to taper off, get shorter here, each side of that middle line, and we'll start another group here. We're gonna outline this here. Hook it around. I think that'll do. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. We really appreciate all your support, the opportunity to teach classes, supply patterns to people all over the country and world. It's been a true blessing to me and my family supporting me, and we appreciate it. Have a great day.